Hey everybody, what's going on? Thanks for joining us for another show. Got a special show tonight. Micheal from the Canadian Atheist is joining me to have a discussion about everyone picking up a little bit of a an echo here. There it is. Anyway, Micheal and I are having a conversation about our favorite topic, which is Darth Dawkins. Well, it's one of my favorite topics. I don't know. I can't speak for Micheal. Anyway, apologies for being a little bit late. We were working on some technical glitches. Micheal came with a sound file that I had to get set up, and it was a little bit weird. But I got to work around, and it's working right now. So we're going to be playing this. It's just audio. We don't have video of it, but it's a conversation that Micheal had with Darth Dawkins. So I'll stop talking there, other than to say hi to everybody in the live chat. Thank you for joining us. Micheal, if you want to give it, I think everybody here knows you, so you probably don't have to really give a big intro to yourself if you don't want to, just other than a hi, and then maybe set up this this conversation we're about to get into.
Sure, yeah. So, hey, everybody. Nice to be seen by you. Of course, I can't see any of you. Nice to be seen by you, Jefferson. Thanks for hosting this thing kind of on the fly. For everybody, we only Jefferson and I only spoke like a day or so ago about this. So this little convo happened on the new thing that I have discovered, Clubhouse. I've only been on Clubhouse for a short time. So I was in a room with anyone who's familiar with Clubhouse is probably familiar with the room, the club Ask a Christian, with Nate and Roy. And I've been in there several times. I've actually had some pretty decent conversations with them. And so I was in there, and lo and behold, our friend showed up. And maybe that's all I need to say for now. But Jefferson, I'm sure pause it whenever you like, and we can chat about it for sure.
Perfect. Same goes for you. Just give a holler when you want me to pause it. I think what I'll do is, just so that everybody knows, just as proof. No, that's not what I wanted. So this is what we see to anyone out there. If you don't believe me, this is just an audio file that we're going to be playing. So I think I'll probably just keep us like this for now, or like this until while I play this. But if anybody in the live chat, if you guys happen to hear something, audio on this is pretty good. But if for whatever reason, I don't know how it's going to sound on the other side of things. If for whatever reason you guys need me to adjust levels, there's not too much I can adjust with StreamYard, unfortunately. That's not OBS. Or if you need me to rewind it a little bit, if anybody wants to hear anything or wants anything for clarification, just give a shout in the live chat per usual. And I am going to get this one started here. Here we go.
What's next? What's that? Well, the other day, Micheal, the Canadian Atheist, was talking with Jay Robin, and he admitted he no longer had any rational defense for his atheism. So we're making progress. So I don't know about that, but I will say I know you guys have history, and I don't want anything to turn attacky in here, right? And
so Jefferson,
hopefully we can all agree.
Sure.
So so maybe I should have given more setup. So of course on Clubhouse you see when somebody comes in, right? And although there is that one guy, Darth Dawkins, who sometimes uses Dee Dee's picture. But so I wasn't 100% sure that it was our friend until he started talking. And so I back channeled Nate in Clubhouse, and I'm like, just so you know, we've got some history. I'm not interested in talking to this chucklehead. But your circus, your monkeys, and and so you can kind of hear what happens. Nate takes it interesting out.
Okay.
Right. So whatever the conversation is, I don't want people to get all attacky. That happened a little bit earlier, and that's good news, isn't it? I think the closer someone comes to a salvation knowledge of Jesus Christ and his finished work on the cross is always a good thing. However, when somebody goes from a position of saying they do have a rational defense for atheism, that God doesn't exist, and they, after speaking to a Christian apologist, Jay Robin, they finally admit they just don't have a rational basis. That's good news. That's progress.
When does that happen?
That's the other thing is that was the first time that I'd ever heard Jay Robin referred to as a Christian apologist. But Yeah.
Well, yeah, apparently Darth graduated him at some point. So yeah, he's no longer a Padawan. Because I remember, and I'll never let him forget it, that time when he seemingly failed to live up to Darth's expectations when was it Eric and Vi on the Talk Heathen
Right,
show
yeah.
after dealing with him many times, and Darth just helpfully volunteered the information. Well, yeah, they're batting him around because they wouldn't be doing this if it was an apologist of a real apologist, that kind of thing. Like, it's like, I don't
Yeah.
think he even realizes.
Of
Yeah,
my stature.
it's like,
Yeah.
I don't think
If
you
you let
realize how
him-
insulting you're being there to your protege. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's interesting how some people have, kind of either have fallen out of favor or have come in and out of favor with our friend. So I should say, do you know Silver Star on Clubhouse?
I've never talked to him. I know who he is.
Oh, okay.
He did reach out to me on Clubhouse, but we've never set anything up.
Right. So, do you mind if I share the story of how I came to know him?
Sure. No, go ahead.
Okay. So, Tom Rabbit shared a video, and I think it was called the Public Rebuke of Darth Dawkins by Silver Star and another guy named Progressing Pilgrim.
Yep.
So I watched that video for the first time, and I was captivated, truly. I mean, all of Tom's stuff is great, and hey, I've been a Tom Rabbit video, so that's saying something.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I was captivated by this video, and so I had to find Silver Star, his name is actually Stacy. I had to find him. So I joined Clubhouse and I looked him up and I found a room that he was in, and I went in, and it was like a, some kind of apologetics thing, obviously, because he's a Christian. And raised my hand, went up on stage, and he said, hi, Micheal, I see, Micheal, the CA. And so I said, hey, I'm Micheal. I do a podcast with a friend called the Canadian Atheist. You don't know me, but I just wanted to and I just thanked him for basically calling out our friend. And so it was interesting because during that conversation, he renamed Darth to Ding Dong.
Ding Dong, yeah.
which is now the name that I try to use, and I still slip up and call him Darth sometimes, which pisses. So I'm a massive Star Wars fan. Darth Vader's my favorite character, and so I hate that Putz has co-opted that. It troubles me. And because, I mean, Darth Vader's a serious badass, right? And Ding Dong is obviously not. So anyway, it bugs me. So I said, look, I joined Clubhouse only to thank you for this. Thank you for, calling this Putz to task and, making an example of him. Since then, we've had lots of conversations. He and I are playing a little bit of email tag. He's agreed to come on the podcast to have a conversation, and yeah, it's been interesting. So anyway, that's where the name Ding Dong came from, and that's how I got onto Clubhouse. And I mean, I've seen you on there a little bit.
Yeah, I've been there.
I like it. It's kind of fun. You can kind of go in and out quickly. I've had some interesting interactions with lots of different people, including some other non-believers who are quite lovely. And yeah, so that's that.
Yeah, that reminds me. I don't know if were you around that one morning that I stopped in? It was one morning that Jay Robin just decided to do a video. It was like, good morning. It's atheist crushing time or something like that. It was something really, triggery like that. And he just decided he was going to do this. And I was there, but it was like, I think this was a couple weeks ago, and it was a work day for me. So I turned it on, and I was listening to it while I was getting breakfast and stuff. And then I had it on the background, and he's almost, as soon as he saw me, he's almost immediately trying to call me out, trying to get me to, to jump in. And I'm like, I can't jump in. I've got phone calls that come in. I've got to be able to answer a phone call. I can't be tied up with a Clubhouse conversation. But yeah, that was the last time I saw either one of them. I haven't really seen anybody all that active on Clubhouse as much, Darth or Jay Robin, really.
Yeah, I haven't seen Ding Dong for a little bit. And you'll see, like, as this audio goes through, maybe we should just listen to more of that. We'll stop it along the way because there's some interesting tidbits.
Yeah. Also, I've started calling Gary, Darth Dawkins, Gary at this point. I didn't used to because I thought people were kind of like leaning into like his previous doxing, but there's been like 4 videos now where it's, from multiple sources where he's having a conversation with somebody and you can hear a woman's voice calling his name.
That's mom.
Yeah, and it's got to be his mom, right? Like, I mean, if I'm being charitable, okay, maybe it's not his mom. It's just some woman he lives with. Maybe they're cohabiting in sin. But either way, he is answering to the name Gary because he's pausing things and responding to this. So it's like, okay, now I'm just going to call him Gary Double D, and then people can just put in for the Double Ds whatever they want.
Exactly.
So it's Ding Dong. Yeah, I agree. Ding Dong's perfect.
and there's nothing like it should be said, right? That if now I have a hard time seeing this simply because of what we've been exposed to from a personality perspective. So I have a hard time imagining him being so altruistic that he would be caring for an elderly parent. But if that's truly what he's doing, that's honorable. And from exposure to him, it's the only honorable thing that he does. But there's certainly honor in that. I helped to care for my parents when they were still alive, elderly. And I'm helping now to care for my in-laws. So that's an honorable thing to do. But I think there's a lot more. I think this is the right way to use it. I think there's a lot more Schadenfreude in thinking of him sitting in mom's basement, eating Cheetos and masturbating.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I did once hear an atheist said that a reason they I guess kind of, who was it? Maybe someone in this room, I don't know, someone said something that caused their conversion was they couldn't defend the conscience anymore. Have you heard that or whatever? Have you been part of that conversation? Not consciousness, but like a conscience.
You mean in terms of conscience instead of morals?
I believe that's where they were. I believe that's where they said it. Like, because they didn't know how they just like.
What's that? You want to?
He's like, conscience? What do you mean conscience? I don't know what that is. I obviously don't have one. And it's. I just thought it was funny how he got tripped up. So, and if anyone's familiar, Nate's like a hardcore Christian. I believe he's a Calvinist. I think Nate and Roy are both Calvinists, and they're pretty fundamental. But he and I have had some decent interactions. We're of course diametrically opposed, right? I think the stuff he believes in is silly, but I found it. I've listened to it now a few times, and when Nate says conscience and Ding Dong is like, conscience? You mean like morals? Like he has no idea. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Conscience?
But Nate was one that I criticized because he was that video where Brenda kind of went at. I think she was on his, and when Brenda was on there, she was saying something like, she had asked the question like, why am I encountering so much LGBTQ hate, especially in these Christian rooms? And Nate's answer to it, I thought was particularly pathetic. So I ended up highlighting it. It was essentially like, well, all people have problems with bigotry, and it's like, nah, Nate. No, that's really non-informative. That's a non-informative answer to steal a favorite phrase of Ding Dong's. But yeah, I don't know that I've had any exchanges with him, but yeah, I know exactly who he is because I've seen him in quite a few of those rooms. So, all right.
Without God, there cannot be objective moral values. And it's even worse than that. When people refuse to acknowledge God who has revealed himself, there's no objective grounding for anything.
So I do feel the need just to step in here for just 1 second and offer a piece of clarification, because once again, in a Christian room, you have someone professing to be a Christian that is being like just downright dishonest. So now I'll offer clarification, or I'll actually tell you what really happened. So what actually happened?
Holy crap! What did happen? Somebody's lying?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, it's somebody's MO. So what happened was,
take a breath.
No, I'm totally cool, man. I'm totally cool.
No, not you, the collective, everyone.
Okay. So what happened was I was asked a question, and so what I said was, I don't have an answer for you right now, I'll have to go away and think about that. And so what that has been turned into is, oh, he doesn't have an answer. So remember how, Nate, when I asked you before, do you think that if someone says, hey, I have to think about something, go away and think about that, and I asked you what your opinion on that was? That was in direct response to that specific conversation that happened. So that's what really happened. But when you have someone who is so dishonest that they don't even have the capacity to, they can't even spell charity, let alone define it in a conversation. When you have someone that is so dishonest, this is what happens. Is someone runs around and now I think it's safe for me to just put him on my troll list. I mean, he's got a troll list a mile wide, even though it's people who really want to speak to him. So anyway, that's what actually happened. So Jefferson,
yeah, so before
go ahead.
Right. So what happened is after so the conversation was basically with Jay Robin, and he was talking to me and he was asking me, I forget exactly what it was that he said now, and I'm not sure whether or not the conversation is still available anywhere to hear or to see. It was on Clubhouse, and he asked me something about coherency or something like that, or defense, logical defense, something like that. And I'm not a logician. I only play one on TV. So I said, I said, I don't have an answer for you, right? Like the way he asked the question was interesting. And I said, I don't have an answer for you right now. I have to think about that. And of course, that's like blood in the water, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, if you can't give me an answer like that, you obviously don't have one. And so when I finished my conversation with Jay Rodham, because I was talking to him, and then Ding Dong came into the room, and I was on stage, and so was, you familiar with John Lee?
Yes.
Yeah. So he was on stage. I was on stage. A couple of other people. John was moved down to the audience. I was moved down to the audience. So when I was moved down to the audience, I was just like, okay, I'm done. And I left. And I went into Nate and Roy's room, which I do pretty regularly, actually, because I think it's fun. They have some interesting conversations, and sometimes they'll make a statement, and I'll go in and just ask a question or something like that. And they're of the firm belief that there's no contradictions whatsoever in the Bible, which is funny.
It is.
And so I'll say, well, what about this one? And then I'll watch them do the apologetics gymnastics of trying to explain it away.
Yeah.
And so I said, hey, Nate, I've got a question for you. What is your stance when someone says, hey, I have to think about that? And so that's what Nate's about to talk about now.
Okay. All right. Let's see.
What am I doing here? Well, Darth, yeah, so that's been my long-standing position. So I guess out of curiosity, like just in a general sense, if someone doesn't know an answer, because there's been stuff I haven't known before, especially years ago when people were asking about, I don't know, eating babies for dinner, for example. That, I may have not had a great answer or a good biblically based answer. I could have either rattled off some nonsense to pacify them, or give them something they couldn't refute, just off the top of my head. But I know that wouldn't have been accurate or honest. It would have just been pulling a rabbit out of the hat to kick the can down the road. Or I could have said, well, I don't know. Let me get back to you. And it's always been kind of my position that that should be a fine answer. Like, I don't know. Should be perfectly acceptable, because would you rather give you the truth, which is, I don't know, let me look into that, or just give you some fluff that is worthless?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I mean, you could do the thing, you could try to. I think maybe they're missing out on the fact that some of these guys like Darth, J. Robin, maybe even Jesus is Lord, but maybe John Maddox and some of these other people. Like, I wonder if they're looking for an atheist that's going to approach atheism the way they approach their Christianity. Like, if they want parity, like they want somebody that's that, like, what's the best, cranked out of shape over the issue. So they're just on attack, and most of them aren't going to be like that. They're just going to, depending on where they're coming from, they're, if they're coming from natural sciences, or they're coming from philosophy, or they're coming from like maybe comparative religions or history or something like that, they're probably going to end up coming in, a little bit different. I don't know of too many that kind of like, well, I don't know. T-Jump is kind of, he kind of like intentionally goes after people. like
He
engages
does,
in debates.
and I like Tom. I got a lot of time for Tom. He was on the podcast last year. I got a lot of time for Tom.
Yeah.
Sorry,
and
go
I
ahead.
don't. No, I was just going to say, like, yeah. Other than him, and maybe like, I think Steve McRae was kind of angling towards doing that for himself too, where he was going to be that kind of. Although I could never really understand exactly what his stance was. They would get into that whole definition of what an atheist really was, and I would just tune right out.
So it's really interesting. So just to sidestep a little bit, if it's okay with you. So I used to consider myself, and I go into it more in this audio you hear. I used to consider myself, kind of a weak atheist, right?
Yeah.
Kind of a lack of belief. Some people call lack theist. Even I'll use the term lack theist sometimes. And I see that Randolph is here now. He's not going to like what I'm about to say. I think the lack theist approach is lazy. I think people should have the courage of their convictions. And Steve actually put out a paper on he does this thing called 3 a.m. philosophy. And he put out this kind of open letter, and it was called Atheists and Their Burden of Proof, or the Atheist Burden of Proof. And I printed it out and I read it. And I was looking at it and I'm like, this is bullshit. And I crumpled it up and I chucked it over my shoulder, not literally, just figuratively speaking. And then I went away and I thought about it a little bit, and I read it again. And I started looking into more of the definitions and stuff like that. And like, I've always been a huge fan of Aaron Ra. Like he's been on the podcast a few times. I met him when he was up here in Toronto. I consider him a friend. And Aaron is, he will say things like, atheism is a lack of belief for God or gods, nothing more than that, nothing more. The thing with Aaron is that Aaron will back his shit up. Because if you ask Aaron about the Christian God, he'll say that God for sure doesn't exist. And he'll tell you why. But he still goes by the dictionary definition. In Steve's paper that he put out, he talked about the differences between the dictionary definition and the SEP's definition.
Yeah.
And I now take the SEP stance. I actively believe gods don't exist. And I go into more detail in this when I'm talking to Ding Dong. And maybe we should just listen to that, because it's fairly delicious.
Okay. All right.
Your thought on that, generally speaking?
Well, it's interesting that he would impugn me as lying, given the fact that when he and I were on the Praise I Am channel, and I questioned him for this rational justification for atheism, he immediately switched from global atheism to local atheism, which is not what we call classical atheism.
Which is something that Darth does, but I won't get into that tangent.
And I pointed out to him that he's a global atheist, right? And he is. A local atheist just is somebody who disbelieves in one or more gods that might be presented locally, but it is not the position that they disbelieve in all gods. So Micheal is a...
Generally, that's not correct. I mean, at least I don't think that's the correct definition. I'm pretty sure that local and global can be swapped out for narrow and wide.
Or strong and weak.
Yeah, and generally what you're doing there, well, in the narrow wide definition, you can be strong and weak within that too. But the way the narrow and wide was done is that a narrow atheist is somebody who'd be basically kind of like a pantheist, possibly. Like they have a positive belief that the Abrahamic God, that omni God, doesn't exist, but they're open to the notion of the existence of supernatural realms or supernatural entities, supernatural possibilities. That would be a narrow atheist. It's like, yeah, the God of Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, they probably doesn't exist for them, and there's a scale of kind of disbelief there. And then the wide, the kind of wide atheist would be like, no, not only do I think that there isn't that God, I don't think there are any other gods, and I also don't tend to think that there are things like ghosts and specters and supernatural realms or anything like that too. So I think what he's trying to do here is like, oh, well, you're just getting into a local one because you're just picking and choosing the ones you disagree with. No, No, they the one that they usually disagree with. The reason that they're talking to somebody like Darth Dawkins is because as a local one, and maybe that definition can get a little wonky. Somebody like, yeah, I don't believe in Thor, but Zeus, yeah, there's proof for that guy. I don't think that's helpful. I think local and global, it has to be. I think it's closer to narrow and wide, and generally that narrow or local is going to be a rejection of the Abrahamic God. So that's from my perspective. I think what he's doing here is not only muddies up the issue more, but I'll let him get more of that wrong.
Well, I do my best to offer a great degree of clarity, which will come up in just a minute.
Okay.
When I asked him to give a defense of his global atheism, he couldn't do so. Okay, and then he became catatonic. After that, he encountered Jay Robin. I believe it was last week, sometime, and Jay Robin asked him for what was the main rational justification for atheism, and his response was to say that he's an atheist because he doesn't have a reason to believe in God. Now, Jay Robin walked him through it that this is an appeal to ignorance, that a proposition is true, atheism, if its negation is unconvincing or unpersuasive. This is a classical informal fallacy of an appeal to ignorance, argumentum ad ignorantum. Jay Robin walked him through this several times, and the light clicked on, and Micheal realized that he could no longer claim not Godism because the God world was unconvincing, because that is the argumentum ad ignorantum. When pressed further to give a justification for his atheism, he had none. Now, if he's saying I'm lying, well, then he can come forth right now and tell us what is his rational justification for atheism.
So, for my part in this, unfortunately, or fortunately, I have to make some phone calls. So
Nate Bale.
Have fun. I'm going to run away.
He just said that. Well, at least he was honest about it. I'm going to run away. Yep. And he's scuppering off. Yep.
Yeah, so he can demonstrate right now. Since he says I'm a liar,
I really do.
He says I'm a liar.
Hang on a second. Yeah, so Roy, on a technical note, I do have to make some phone calls, and I'll try to jump back in with you shortly as I can.
No worries.
Just real quick before you get into
I'd like to finish what I was saying, Christopher. So since Micheal says I'm a liar, when I said Micheal basically admitted he didn't have a justification for his atheism, he can tell us right now what is the rational justification for atheism.
So this is really funny. So what I'd like for you to do is I'd like to just are the replays on for this? Awesome, replays are on. So awesome, that's great. So what you can do is you can go back just a few minutes and you can go back to what I said. And what I said was he was lying about what it is that I said and how I said it. So that's the first thing. And then maybe Ding Dong can also offer whether or not that interaction between Jay Robin and I is still available for consumption somewhere. Because if it is, then everybody listening to this can go back and listen to what it is that was actually said. And because that's the objective witness that never lies, unlike Darth. So, before I answer your question, which I'd be happy to, what I would love to know is if he has access to my private mental. So I had to chuck that in there because if anyone has consumed a lot of Ding Dong material, they hear him say all the time, "Oh, I'd be happy to get to my worldview, but first I want to talk about this."
Yeah.
So I couldn't pass up the opportunity to give him that little poke.
Yeah, I mean, if Darth Dawkins was a little bit more endearing, the "but first" thing would be like his equivalent of if anybody knows the character Columbo from the ABC Mysteries,
one more thing.
Just one more thing, ma'am. But first, is I think kind of like Darth's thing.
Yeah,
Let me ask you another question.
We're dating
definitely. Yeah, Definitely. I was actually watching an older director go on. I was like, yeah, I remember when I was a kid, you know, I was always excited when Columbo would come on.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, me too. God damn it, I'm old.
Yep.
And if he does, that's super amazing. But because he doesn't, that was rhetorical, by the way, Darth, in case you weren't aware of that. But because he doesn't, what I would love for him to tell me is exactly what I mean when I say I am an atheist.
You have been asked in the past if you disbelieve in all gods, and you said yes. Okay? Now, notice the elephant in the room. Okay? He did not present a rational justification for atheism. When he was speaking with...
But you did say that you'd be happy to.
Yep.
But you had a question. I like how he just pretends like what, you know, that part of what you said didn't happen.
I obviously didn't ask a question, right?
Right. Yeah. I didn't hear it.
I don't know. I would love to have like a little clicker and would go back and consume every second of ding dong material that exists, and have a clicker and click every time he answers a question. I don't think your thumb would get sore.
Yeah, I would say that would be, you know, I would recommend that approach as a drinking game for teetotalers. People who don't want, you know, they don't want it to get out of control. Like, no worries.
Exactly. Yeah.
Drink every time he answers a question.
Yeah, they won't lose their AA chip easily.
Yeah, no.
With Jay Robin asked him, what is your fundamental basis for atheism? And he said, well, I don't have a reason to believe in God, right? As I said earlier, Jay Robin showed him that this is the argumentum ad ignorantum fallacy, okay? That a proposition, not God, is true because its negation, God, is unconvincing or unpersuasive. And he just said, oh, I'm going to have to think about that. He abandoned his fundamental grounds for atheism, okay? Jay Robbins showed him over and over again that this was the argumentum ad ignorantum fallacy. Now, notice again, if I'm lying that he does not have a rational justification for atheism, he can give it. Now, if he wants to retreat, as he always has in the past, to lacktheism, okay, it makes no difference, okay, because it still constitutes an indirect denial of God, right? So what is the rational justification that there is no God? Or what is the rational justification that you positively believe that facts don't necessitate God, okay? I'd love to hear your justification.
Now, see, that's slightly different because that's an interesting way to smuggle it in, because he's never, I guess maybe he's never really asking the one question, you know, hey, what's your reason? Because if he just asked the basic question, if he was asking it in plain English and he was going to have just a conversation with a skeptic, like, hey, what's your reason for not believing in God? You know, what are some reasons why? And they could say, well, you know, most people are going to come up, well, I'm not convinced that any of this is true or anything like that. And then they'll be like, well, that's an argument ad ignorantum. Like, no, that's not. That really isn't. Like, you know, the reasons that are being presented to a lot of people, including the people who are unconvinced, at least this is for me, like, I mean, if I had to sum it up, it's that I'm not convinced that this thing that you're talking about isn't made up.
See, I take a stronger stance than that. But it depends. It depends, and what I don't want to spoil it. So let's just let this play, and then I'll explain after.
Okay. I mean, I've only recently started using that language, but I think that's the fairest one to use. If they then want details as to why, I'll lay out like, well, here's the reason. Because I've tried opening with the reasons. I tried with Jay Robin, and he was like, no, that's an argument ad ignorantum. And I was laying out like the God that you're defining is catastrophic and logically impossible and all these kinds of things. And he didn't even listen to it. He's like, what you're telling me is that you don't believe in it because you're not convinced because it seems to you like it's unconvincing. Like, no. Like,
you cannot go. Yeah, you cannot go off script with these guys.
Yeah. So yeah, if they want to have like a plain English one and they're like, what, you know, why don't you think God's real? You know, why doesn't God exist? Well, it does exist if you count stories as existing. You know, in that case, I don't have a problem with it. You know, but here we go.
justification instead of just verbal tap dancing and just monologuing away?
I don't think you know what monologue means. Otherwise, you wouldn't have just gone through what you just went through without asking the one question I asked you. So I'll answer the question for you, since I'm the one that has privileged access to my mental states. So, actually, maybe I should ask you another question first. Because you said, that God doesn't exist, that God doesn't exist. I'd love to hear this. We're in a Christian room. Darth, which God are we talking about?
We're talking about atheism, and again, you are dodging the question. Do you have a rational justification for your denial and disbelief in all gods? Now, that's about the third or fourth time the question has been proposed. Do you have an answer to that?
Well, as you and I have discussed before, I am an atheist. I do actually take the positive stance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be more honest than you have the capacity to be, apparently, evidently. I take the SCP stance. I believe, in fact, that gods do not exist. Now, this is something that
Hey, you got to define terms, dude. Like half of us don't know what any of this stuff means, so please define terms.
Yeah, so I'm about to. So the SCP, the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. So there's a couple of accepted definitions for atheism. The first one is the dictionary definition, which is a lack of belief or God or gods. I personally think that lacktheism is as lazy as presuppositional apologetics. I think it's pretty lazy. I think you should have the courage of your convictions. The Stanford Encyclopedia definition of philosophy is the belief gods do not exist, or God or gods, I believe, I think is the actual terminology. I take that stance. Now, for the Christians in the room, I'm going to exclude Darth because he wouldn't affirm that was the God he was referring to. Really odd because he claims to be a Christian. For the Christians in the room, I am convinced that the God of the Bible does not exist. I am a little less convinced, so perhaps a little more agnostic when it comes to Allah or the polytheistic gods of Hinduism, etc. So that's why when I've had discussions with this calling himself or professing Christian in the past, I've asked him to be very specific. I've asked him to tell me which God he's talking about. And you would think that a Christian would want to defend 1 Peter 3:15 and be able to defend the faith that lies within them and do so with gentleness and respect. These are other terms Darth doesn't understand. So I have now laid out precisely what I mean when...
I gotta say, props for throwing 1 Peter at him. 1 Peter 3:15. Yeah, I don't know why that's not more of a guilt trip for guys. Well, I do know why for Darth, because he's not a Christian.
He's so clearly not a Christian. One of the there was a comment that you put up just a second ago that somebody agreed with Darth and that I should give reasons as to why I don't believe God exists. So, do you mind?
Well, no, I think his wording was you should use the reasons that. Let me find it again. It was just up here. Where did he put it? I actually agree with Darth here. You all need to start using the reasons he gives you to not believe in God, which I have done.
Oh, interesting.
I've done that because
I misread it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I tried. I think I tried this with him. I don't know how far I got. I think I was on Praise's channel, and probably had a couple belts of whiskey in me at the time. but I was trying to get him to leak because he was going on the whole contingent. All facts are contingent. I was just like, yeah, sure. Now, God accounts for evil in your worldview. So congratulations. So now you've got a contradictory being.
Oh, the Bible says that, Isaiah 45:7.
Right, but they don't do that. He waves that away like a lot of other people. Like, no. The translation there is that it's not evil, it's calamity. It's like,
sure, yeah, okay, yeah, but calamity is super good, yeah.
Right. Well, and then all I do is just to go into a very long explanation why for that particular God they're talking about the distinction between calamity and a moral evil, natural evil and moral evil there is no distinction for a God. the God that they're defining. So yeah, no, it's just it. I mean, if it is the fact upon which all other facts are contingent, then God is the grounding for evil and everything bad. So
Yeah.
you have a contradictory God. You have a God that is all good, all just, all merciful, and all evil, all at the same time. Yeah.
The other two verses I like to use is 1 John 4 says God is love. And 1 Corinthians 13, the biblical definition for love is, you've heard it at weddings, right? Love is kind, love is patient, love is not boastful, yada, yada.
Yeah.
And so, God is love, 1 John 4. Biblical definition, kind and patient. Unless you are prepared to rationalize the atrocities in the Bible, like the wiping out of the Amalekites or the Midianites or any of the other ites, as kind, okay, if you want to do that. Otherwise, you've got a hell of a situation on your hands.
Yeah, God equals the square root of -1, and says two men having anal sex is contingent on God. Okay, got it. Yeah, no, it would be like homosexuality. I mean, anything that homosexuality would have to be not only homosexual acts, which Christians think are just choices, elective or misbehaving, but actual sexual orientation. All of that stuff would be contingent upon God. So
yeah,
they're just going to have to deal with that.
Yeah, I was at the Pride Parade in Toronto a bunch of years ago. Pride Toronto is amazing. It's the second largest parade in North America, second only to San Francisco. It's gigantic and it's super amazing. I've been down there. I've been there several times to support friends, and I saw this one T-shirt a guy had on, all rainbow and stuff like that, and it said, "God made me gay. Who are you to question him?" Yeah.
See, stuff like that, those quick ones, that always kind of reminds me of what was it, Ricky Gervais's little one, thank God. I thank God every day for making me an atheist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me read this one off here. Darth needs to retreat to a minimalist God because it's just too hard to defend everything about what he believes in Christianity because it's all logically necessary in his view. Yeah, that's the big problem. Plus, Jack Angstreich has pointed out that a lot of what he talks about when he starts talking about this God necessarily existing and the world being the way it has to be because that necessary God couldn't have made it any other way per his attributes, according to Darth, then evil is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And also contingent upon God. So, all right, let's finish this up.
I call myself an atheist. Now, Darth, do you have the capacity to be the Christian you claim to be and tell us which God we're talking about? And then I will tell you precisely why I am convinced that God does not exist.
Okay, what you just heard was a repeat of what Micheal tried to pull on the Praise I Am channel, which you can find a recording of that on the internet. Just type in Micheal the Canadian Atheist and Darth Dawkins round 2. Micheal switches from global atheism, the denial and disbelief in all gods, to local atheism by saying, well, which God are we talking about? This is the classic bait and switch that atheists pull all the time. Now, I will repeat the question that was invoked minutes ago that he has dodged 3 times. He just admitted that he holds to the Stanford Encyclopedia definition of atheism. There are no gods. We have yet to hear his rational defense as to why there is no creator.
Is he like stabbing at his desk? I hear thumping going on. I'm wondering if he's like, doing the finger point down at his desk. Tunk, 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 tunk. So.
Maybe he's jabbing himself with a fork or something. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's funny, and yeah, a couple of comments that came up. It's like he's his cowardice is definitely showing here. All he needed to do is affirm the Christian God. Hey, Rage. All he had to do is affirm the Christian God, and then I would have given my 3 prongs as to why I am convinced that God does not exist. But he won't do it because he cannot. He has to. His address is Vaguetown, USA. And he has to stay there because he knows that once he gets specific, he's screwed.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Here.
God whatsoever. We're waiting to hear you to give the rational justification for that, Michael. So,
my apologies, Randolph. I did not mean to highlight that last one. I was trying to click off the Raging Atheists one to de-highlight his, and it clicked on yours because it jumped. So my apologies.
Once again, and I'm going to be finished after this, I would hope that every Christian hearing this, like Roy, you and I have had decent interactions. I believe you when you say you're a Christian. Steph, you and I have had pretty decent interactions. I believe you when you tell me you're a Christian. Darth, you have, like, this is, I honestly, I'm honestly giggling while I'm on mute because I'm so happy that the replays are on. I'm thrilled. I am tickled pink because I laid it out super easy for you. I told you exactly what I mean. I'm speaking slowly so you're sure to understand me. I told you what I mean when I call myself an atheist. And for the umpteenth time, you refuse to stand up for the God you profess to believe in, just like all of your sycophants. And now I can say with a clear conscience and a clear mind, I am done with you. I will never interact with you again. And it is a gleeful thing for me to say. So anyone else who's a Christian that would like to engage with me and talk with me about what I mean by what I said, which I was very clear on, I invite you. My email address is in my bio. Please feel free to reach out. Okay, hold on a second. I'm completely done. No, I'm done. I am done interacting with you, Darth. I'm done. I will engage you, Michael.
Okay, pause it for a second.
Hold on a second, please.
So there's a couple other people. One of the guy talking now is a guy named Antinous, who I've since reached out to because he said and I didn't hear it at the time because I was so focused on over talking Ding Dong, so he could not talk to me. Here, when I listened to it a second time, I'm like, oh, this guy. So I reached out to him on Clubhouse, and he was surprised. He's like, I'm surprised you reached out to me. I'm like, yeah, man. Like, send me an email. Happy to host you on the podcast, or we can, meet in a room somewhere and have a talk. It was really interesting, and I got several back channel messages from Christians apologizing for Ding Dong for not having the stones to step up.
Yeah, that's interesting. Maya is asking, is this the same conversation that Skylar streamed live? Maya, are you asking about this one that we're playing now? I don't know if Skylar
Yeah, he did.
He did.
Yeah, he streamed it. But one of the reasons I reached out to you is that I didn't want this to be lost. And Skylar, for personal reasons, he's removed all of his content from YouTube. Like if you click on his channel, he doesn't have any content up there right now. And
okay.
I have his personal contact number. Like I have his cell phone number, and I sent him a text. I'm like, hey, dude, are you okay? And he said, yeah, he had to step away for personal reasons. And I think he just needs a break. I think it was just getting to be too much for him. So, which is a thing, right? Like this, yeah, there could be some serious toxicity.
Well, yeah, and you could have work things, legal things, all sorts of stuff that can come up that can also get in the way. Where it's just better to have that stuff, locked up for a while.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, okay, that's too bad. Yeah. How long ago was this one?
About 3 weeks.
3 weeks ago. Okay.
Ish. Something like that.
Yeah, so that probably would have been about the last time that Skylar had done anything then. Yeah, because I was going to say I haven't seen a notification from him in a while. So, okay.
I will never answer your question again, Darth. Never again. Never. Okay. Never. Stop talking to me. Stop talking to me. I'm done with you. I'm done with you.
That's why I just turn in. I kind of become an asshole.
Okay, so again, this is exactly
I'm done.
the shtick
I'm
that
done.
you pulled
I'm not going to allow him to
on
speak to me.
the praise I
Toss me
am.
down to the
Why is he
audience or kick
over-talking
me.
me?
But I'm done.
Moderators,
No,
can
Michael,
we
toss
mute
me
him?
down
This
or
is
kick
his room, Michael.
I'm done.
This is his room.
Yeah,
Okay.
Michael. Okay, thank you. Okay,
No,
so this is
I'm
the
not going to
exact
do
same.
this. Address it.
Michael.
Can we
No,
mute
I'm
him?
done.
Okay,
I'm done.
guys.
Goodbye, everyone.
Stop.
Okay, that solves
You're out.
that.
Wait,
And that's that. And that's when I left, because he and I don't know. I didn't go back and listen afterwards whether or not he probably went on and talked about how I was a failure or something like that. But I was adamant about not letting him get a word in. And it's weird because I'm sure he went on, because anyone who knows anything about Ding Dong knows that he needs to like have the last word. He needs to justify why he said things, or why, you know, he did things, and why the other person didn't do things.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's it for that one.
Yeah.
So,
So unfortunately, that's my last interaction with him, because I won't have anything to do with him again.
that's not altogether that bad. I mean, I like doing what I mean, I've said it probably too many times. I like being able to just kind of sit here. I get to hear his conversations, take my time, pick them apart. Right. I'm not taking the interrogation. I mean, hats off, and you know, and more power to anybody that, you know, that engages them. But like, I don't know that it really does any good, because it's just, I mean, the interesting thing is there's a couple different ways that you could review them. One is to kind of take a look at the conversations, and Tom usually highlights the ones where he's getting a little bent out of shape, or he's getting turned up. You know, it's him versus some kind of a non-believer or something like that. But the weird one is the conversations that you hear. They don't get pushed a lot, but every once in a while, you get a snippet or something, or an excerpt from a conversation that he has with another believer. And it's not heated. You know, those are one of those examples that he likes to give, like, you know, you guys are just showing the stuff when, you know, when I'm being loud and I'm being nasty or whatever, and you guys don't ever highlight the conversations that you have when everything's going great. And it's like, yeah, I kind of wish we did, because even in those ones when he's being calm, he'll often volunteer information that is just so jaw-droppingly stupid. and there's absolutely no tension going on for the most part.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I had a conversation a couple of years back with Saiten Bruggencate, and I mean, like again, I don't know that I could be more opposed to a person's worldview than I am to his, but he's not an asshole. At least it wasn't to me. So what happened was I was supposed to debate Sai on the now defunct, or it's actually just returned, Non Sequitur show, when Kyle Curtis was still involved. And Sai sent me a message. He only lives about 2.5 hours from me. I'm just east of Toronto and he's west of Toronto.
Okay.
And he sent me a message and he said, listen, you know, we're both in Southern Ontario. I do this thing online all the time. So either I'm going to come to you or you're going to come to me. And so I sent him my address. He showed up at my house. Came in with my podcast partner, Dean, and I. We sat down and we had a conversation. And it's episode something, you know, in our back catalog anyway. And if you watch him online, he's a lot more provocative. He's a lot more argumentative. But when you're sitting 1.5 feet from him, you just have a conversation with him. I don't know that would be possible with Ding Dong, because he has a very punchable voice.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, because that was sort of my impression of him when I first heard him back when my brother kind of lured me into the YouTube orbit, because he was watching stuff like, well, he was doing, you know, he was hanging out in some Google Plus chats and stuff with like Steve McRae and Nate Brody back in the day. But he was watching a lot of Atheist Experience and stuff like that, and he'd hear arguments and hear stuff from callers and stuff and bring that up. And I was always, you know, he'd run them past me. And then when he started bringing me in there, I remember the first time I heard this guy, and I was like, who the hell is that asshole? I think it was an MK stream, because my brother used to have, you know, long comment exchanges with MK, and had a few kind of heated conversations with him, and that's when I first started running into. And I don't know if he was going, but he wasn't consistently going by Darth Dawkins, and I think he was going by, well, maybe he was, but he was always switching around Darwin's deity, evolution faults, and Darth Dawkins. That was my first impression. Was like this guy, the way he talked, it reminded me of like Bill O'Reilly or Rush Limbaugh. There was something about the tone of his voice made you just want to. Something about it made you want to stop them talking. Like you just wanted to yell at them to shut up. Like I hate the sound of your voice. I hate the way that you're saying things. I hate what you're saying half the time. Like 98% of the time. Like just this is just a loser all around.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was listening to one of Tom Rabbit's videos. I don't know, months ago, and I just had my it was just on my phone. It was just on speaker, and I came downstairs and I put on the island in the kitchen, and Ding Dong's talking, and my wife's like, "Who is that?" And he has this voice. It's the antithesis of soothing.
Yeah. It's a sandpaper voice. And even people who have like grating voices or kind of harsh voices aren't as like his voice always sounds like he's upset. That the tone of his voice is like he's looking to get somebody in trouble, right? That's the thing that kind of sets me like that. This guy is just looking for drama, and you can hear it in his voice. You can just tell by the way he inflects stuff. It's condescending, patronizing, and ignorant. I
think
I can't stop listening to him.
If you were, it's the train wreck. You have to. It's like I can't watch. Show me more. I think he would be supremely uninteresting to sit down and talk like about the weather or anything. Like like it seems like, and maybe it's because all of us are exposed to the worst side of him. And this is something that I learned. Like I'm a pretty easygoing guy, but he has the capacity to bring out the worst in me. Like it's interesting. And so it's one of the reasons why it's another reason why I won't anymore. Because it's like, I don't was this Darth's ASMR? That's funny. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. I don't even want to think about it. I'm over 50 now, so shingles is not okay.
Yeah, and Jeff loves drama. I love the dramatic.
Yeah,
I do like drama. Like I love narrative. I love literature. I love movies. A huge movie fanatic and a literature fanatic. So yeah, I guess in that sense, tangentially, I do like drama. But the kind of interpersonal drama that Darth brings to the table is worse than trolling. Like I don't like that kind of, because to me trolling is just like half-assed lazy bullying. Like there's a difference between pranking people and then trolling. Trolling is when you take it too far and you don't give a shit, and that I don't get that. And then trolls are usually the first ones like, it was just a joke, right? And you have to slap upside the head because it's like you got somebody hurt or you got somebody arrested or something like that. Like, but with Darth, it's just this weird. It's that like he's pulling you over. It's that tone of voice. Like he's the cop and he stopped you and he's going to tell you what's right and what's wrong, and you're going to do what Daddy Darth says, or you're going to get you're going to get a paddling. Like that kind of crap he can just take a hike with that shit.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that because it's one of the things I think about. So if you remember, I'm ashamed to admit that I watched many moons ago. I watched the first Harold and Kumar movie.
I think you meant don't lie, but thank you, Orge. It's like don't lie, you don't read shit. I don't read often enough between YouTube and my job, but I do like literature. Yeah, you hurt my feelings, Orge. Go away.
And so I was watching the Harold and Kumar movie, and there was the cop that pulled him over or something, who was the bully in high school. And so that's kind of how I see Ding Dong, except that he probably like, and this may seem like low hanging fruit, but look at who we're talking about. It seems to me that this is the one area of his life where he has any authority. That mute button, right? The red duct tape, which is concerning for other reasons. But you know, and so it's like this is the only joy in his life. I spend a disproportionate amount of time on YouTube and consuming, you know, social media and stuff like that. But I mean, he seemed. I think he's like the all-time gold medal winner. Like, I don't know someone who's on more than he is, with the exception of the last few days, the last little bit. But he just seems to spend hours and hours and hours and hours, having these conversations, and he doesn't seem to get tired of it.
No. And speaking of which, would you like to stick around and review a 5-minute video from this guy's named Clubhouse Debates? It's a good one. It's Darth Dawkins called out for, quote, lying is worse than child molestation.
Sure.
You're here, you might as well. This is not going to take long. But I remember this coming on. He's frequently said, no, I never said that. People have been like, yeah, aren't you the one that said that lying is worse than, you know, sexual assault on kids? And his answer is, no, that's not what I meant. Well, in this, he actually gives a little bit of a lengthy explanation of what he really meant, and I'd be interested to catch your reaction. So
sure,
let's throw it up on the Cinematron, and here we go. Turn this on. See.
Look at the last analysis that he did of a video of mine. I mean, it was laughably stupid.
I hope he's talking about me there. He's talking about somebody doing an analysis. I hope that he was talking about me. I can't be certain though. But,
you know.
So, Darth, I was brought a concern, and it might have been taken out of context because it sounds outrageous to me. But somebody said that you believe that lying is more outrage, like is worse than child molestation.
What I said was, how should I put this?
How is just no not the first thing out of your mouth?
Exactly. That was my reaction
no?
when I heard that. I heard that this earlier this morning, and I'm like, okay, if your reaction is no, absolutely not. That is not what I said, and that's not what I meant. Right? That's how you lead off the answer to that question. And he's already like, well, you're in luck, because this is a real gem from Double D.
It's not precisely what I said. Okay, I didn't say lying is worse than child molestation. What I said is, people who are committed to purposely lying, okay, instead of just a momentary lie where somebody is in an anxious moment, they don't want to be called out on the carpet, you know, does this dress make me look fat? No, honey, you look great in the dress. Okay, whatever. When people purposely and regularly lie, they're violating one of the very fundamental basic social contracts. And they're being devious about it, okay? Whereas child molestation is a different kind of a violation, okay? I mean, lying is so serious that we put people in jail for it if they lie under oath.
We also put people in jail for sexual assault. What I think is interesting here is that his way of backing out of this is, okay, no, I didn't say that lying is worse than child molestation. What I meant to say was, and I'll paraphrase this for Darth Dawkins, compulsive liars, perpetual liars are worse than pederasts. That's essentially the explanation that he gave.
Yeah, said no one reasonable ever.
Yeah, and the weird thing is too is that, okay, like even if you wanted to like do like a weird moral calculation on this, like one lie is not tantamount to one act of sexual assault on any victim, right? Well, and like he's like, no, what I'm talking about is somebody who lies all the time, somebody who's just constantly lying. That's worse than somebody who is committed an act of sexual assault against a child. So maybe he's thinking one, the perpetual liar is worse than the incidental child rapist. Like, no way that you look at this, no matter how you try to like suss out the moral arithmetic he's doing here, it's just nonsense. It doesn't make sense. And this is coming from a guy who thinks he's got an objective handle on what morality is. So, but yeah, he gets into this a little bit more.
Because it undermines the whole judicial process, okay? somebody inappropriately touching a child, it doesn't undermine the whole basic social fabric. Okay.
It causes immense trauma in that child, Darth, and that can cause
I don't dispute that can be true. Okay, but you have to understand the context.
Is it ever beneficial for a kid to be sexually assaulted? Like, because that's what. If it can be true that they could be traumatized, it sounds like, oh, it might be. Yeah, maybe. Like, okay, is there a possibility that they're going to come out of it unscathed?
I'm having trouble.
This is really, and I think this is relatively recently here. So, yeah.
Which I said it. And as always, my opponents, people who hate me, always misrepresent what I say.
I know, and that's what I said.
I've always maintained that people who are committed to lying in public discourse, okay, like atheists, certain many Muslims,
atheists are lying.
Certain.
So notice that, quote unquote, people committed to lying equals people Darth frequently disagrees with, or people that frequently disagree with Darth and challenge his views.
But that's everybody he speaks to, right?
Yeah.
Everyone he speaks to is dishonest, deceitful, an alcoholic, drug addict, pothead, or 12 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I usually send a delinquent, debilitated, delinquent, drunk, or deceiver, or something like that. Yeah. And in this case, like, okay, so all these people are lying. So, and now that's consistent with what I think, what he once said before, and I think he it freely admitted to it. Somebody was like, "You said that atheism is worse, or like an atheist is worse than a child molester," and he was like, "Yep." And maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was G-Man, because that certainly seems like a G-Man thing to say.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, like G-Man, the guy that would end every video with "Read your Bible and do what it says."
Yeah. Just be careful about those parts in the Old Testament where it tells you to, wipe out the neighboring tribes. Do not kill the suburb next to you. God does not want them smote or smite, whatever.
They are liars. Where they're committed as an ongoing practice that.
This is based on what moral standard is DD wrong? His own. Now, if you wanted to say that he's not wrong here, that there aren't any objective moral facts. How would, if there are objective moral facts, right? And Darth believes in Darth is a big pro-life guy, right?
No, he's not. He's pro-birth.
Yeah, exactly. He's an anti-abortion type guy, anti-choice. And so, and he's made the argument that's at least from a secular state, as far as the purposes of the government's concerned, one of the main things that the government and society needs to be concerned with is the welfare of children. That's one of the primary functions of our society. And yet, somehow lying is worse.
Sometimes lying is the most moral thing you can possibly do.
Right. And the other problem that he has with is that Darth Dawkins has a very flimsy way. Like, Otangelo, has not Darth Dawkins accused you of lying when you guys have simply had a disagreement?
Oh, if he only accused Otangelo of lying, there's video floating around of him out there, of him going up one side of you and down the other.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to know by whose moral standard Darth is wrong, his own. And the moral standard that he claims his God has. It just doesn't, well, unless you really get down in the dumps on the whole thing. But I mean, what he's talking about here, this moral calculus is poor.
This is, I think, in some ways more problematic than somebody who is traumatizing a child. I think it has far.
Okay, so what about somebody? So you got somebody. Let's make it equal then. Somebody tells a lie. Somebody traumatizes a child. Somebody perpetually lies, like an atheist or a Muslim, according to Darth. Someone perpetually traumatizes children, plural. Which one's worse? I don't think he's really thought this through.
are worse social ramifications than certain instances of somebody sexually inappropriately coming in contact with a child. That's not to minimize the reprehensibleness of it.
Sir,
As
I
a
would
child
only
molestation.
If you're saying that lying rises to a level above sexual assault of a kid, you are minimizing it. Because there's lots of different ways that you can tell a lie.
There is, okay. I think there are instances where lying could do harm. I think that's fair to say. There's no instance where sexual assault doesn't.
Yeah.
Again, there are some lies that are beneficial. Like everybody's heard about the whole, that the Jews hiding in the attic in World War II, right?
Exactly.
Knock on the door, right? Everybody's heard that a million times. That is an instance where the most moral thing you can do is to lie.
Yeah.
There is never a time when it's like when being rapey doesn't do all kinds of damage. Never.
Yeah, so it just seems kind of weird that he's talking about like, well, somebody lying versus like it just the way he's got like it seems like he's almost saying like, oh, the incidental sexual assault of a kid, like, oh, so a kid happens to get inappropriately touched by an adult. Okay, that's normally kind of a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Or at least it should be. So I mean, really, this does kind of affirm like, I mean, he's pro-birth, but he ain't pro-life, right? Because the life of the child, it's like, yeah, I don't want the child should not be terminated. The pregnancy should not be terminated. Yeah, but the life of the kid at that point, like, well, yeah, that can just be a shit sandwich from day one until the day he dies. But that's God's good urge to determine what that kid's going to have. So we just need to get out of the way and let the suffering happen. And by the way, if he makes the wrong choice, he's still, after all the suffering that you endure in life, he's still got a whole eternity of hell to look forward to, according to Darth Dawkins. I mean, is it any reason this guy is, always, there's a reason he's always angry on the internet. So,
yep.
I would only disagree because of the like the situation that causes with internal struggles. Like somebody who's molested as a child could then take those aggressions that they have and turn into a person like one that you're speaking about. So I would disagree with you. I would say that molesting a child will cause people to grow into the individuals that you're speaking of.
Well, that's a Freudian interpretation. Okay, that people are doomed to be what they are as adults.
Yeah, but that's not what she was going with.
Because of some misbehavior when they're young. That's a Freudian.
Well, they're conditioned, correct? They're conditioned as children.
Okay. Do you understand that view that you're giving is a Freudian one?
No, I mean, you can take it into a Freudian direction, but no, when trauma happens to a kid at that level, and they know this now from neurobiology, the plasticity of the brain, it can create lasting repercussions, negative repercussions for the rest of that person's life.
Yeah, there's all kinds. My formal education is in social work, and there's tons of research and studies to back up the fact that traumatization, even vicarious traumatization of a child, can mess them up for their whole life. It's his. Well, you know what? I guess they skipped that part whenever Darth went, got his, community college answer.
Yeah, I just had to type a quick comment to it, Angela.
No problem.
Right.
I don't understand. I'm sorry. I don't understand, sir.
All right. Let me do you a favor here. Hold on a second. What's your screen name?
My name is Messy Part of Art Class. Here, I'll change it so that you can see me. Right now it's inconspicuous.
Okay. I'm gonna send you a link.
Yeah, this.
I don't hate you, Darth. I love you.
Well, thank you. That's sweet. I'm touched.
No, he's not.
Okay,
Okay,
so do you
one
see the
moment.
link I just sent you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so yeah, that's the last of that one. But so,
Wow.
yeah, any final thoughts on that thing?
Well, again, the fact that he didn't just like, like no, full stop from the get go, is troubling. But this is what I see. Talking to so many different believers and wannabe apologists, they can try to find a way. It doesn't matter. Like their God really is the ultimate God, because they can morph it into whatever they need to fit that situation, and they can make it work in anything, right? It's like what is that? Gabriel Byrne, who played the devil in that movie End of Days with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
He says, something good happens, it's God's will. Something bad happens, he moves in mysterious ways. I'll use that line frequently because it's like there's always, his ways are higher than our ways. He has a plan, right?
Yeah.
The Bible says that. I think it's Ephesians 1:11. It says, everything is done for his purpose, right? So everything that happens, there's a purpose for it, and we don't get it, I guess.
Yeah. Yep. I wanted to read this one. So Maya writes, so Darth believes that kids can just pull themselves up by their bootstraps when they're traumatized. If he had any friends, he'd be yelling at him to just shut the fuck up repeatedly about now. Yeah, agreed.
No, stop talking. Stop.
Yeah, like, nope, stop. All right. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up there. Do you got any final thoughts on anything? That horrible opinion that he just gave, or your conversation?
I'm still in shock a little bit over his comments on that. That's truly disturbing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's truly disturbing. That like you can, again, like I said before, you might be able to tell a lie that can do real harm, but every single solitary instance of anything that can be labeled as abuse towards a child, it will always do damage. And
Yeah.
so the fact that you can't just and with something so black and white, it's the easiest thing in the world for him to say, and he couldn't just say it.
Yeah.
It's troubling. It's really troubling.
I could almost understand this from the perspective if he believes that, like, if through your lies you're a hindrance to someone getting saved, that's why it's worse than this, because you could it doesn't matter if you're a rapist or a mass murderer or any of these other kinds of things. If the Holy Spirit changes you and moves through you and you're convicted and you repent and you turn to Christ, but if someone's lying about that and that actually becomes a stumbling block in your path or whatever, it's a popular expression amongst Christians, then that's even worse, because you're not just harming them in their physical state, you're not harming them here in our physical realm, you're jeopardizing their immortal soul. And it's like, okay, but that doesn't stack up either, because how is God's revelation thrown off by other people's BS?
Well,
you have to basically give up on the idea that grace can change your heart from within so that you can recognize the truth.
Yeah, I remember having a discussion once about the God's different types of will, like his permissive will versus decretive will.
Yeah.
And so like sin and stuff, like sin and free will and stuff falls under the permissive will. Or so I think I understood that correctly. But if it is if it is decreed, and like for people who are hard determinists or Calvinists, that certainly wouldn't fly, right? Because if it is determined, right, by this omniscient being that you will be saved, then I mean, I'm clearly more powerful than God if I can lie to you and mess that up somehow.
Exactly. Yep.
It doesn't make any sense.
Nope.
But yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Michael, for coming on. It was a good chat. Thanks for that snippet. I'm glad we got that on here. I'm glad we got it to work. I was getting a little nervous there. Thank you, everybody in the live chat, for coming by. Thanks for all your comments, likes, flags, hate mail. Send me hate mail. I don't get enough hate mail. Haven't gotten a single piece yet, and I'm starting to wonder if maybe I'm doing everything right. That's boring. Anyway, but yeah, I will be coming back 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow morning. I'll be doing another. I'll be covering the Darth Dawkins and Eddie Brute Facts video that Tom Rabbit put up, and actually the individual that I shared that from, that other video, he's got the longer version of that. I've got those both linked in there. So if you're interested, check on that one, 11 a.m. tomorrow. As for Micheals info, I did put a couple links up from Micheals podcast. They're in the description below. The one for Listen Notes and Apple. Those are not exhaustive. Check out his podcast if you're interested. And Micheal, you got anything coming up you wanna shill?
Oh, what have I got coming up? I'm supposed to be going back on Donnie Standing for Truth's YouTube channel.
Oh, okay.
In the next couple weeks to have a debate with Ken Hovind.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, my second one actually. He was on the podcast. It's probably 3 years ago now, talking about why he believes in God. And if anyone knows anything about Ken Hovind, it always has to go to evolution.
Yep.
And so that's what he wants to talk about. So that's supposed to be happening within the next couple weeks or so. And I think that's about it for now. Thursdays, I try to stop by Apologetics Live with Andrew Rappaport every once in a while and jump on there. They're very gracious and have had me on a number of times.
Oh yeah, yep. I think I found that list when I was looking for links to your podcast. I found that one of the videos that you had with Andrew Rappaport.
Yeah.
Oh.
What I'll do if it's okay with you is in the side chat here, I'll give you a couple of links that you can put in just for my email, and actually a direct link to the best way to get to the podcast. Like Apple has been quirky the last little while. You can also find it on Podbean and other various podcatchers. But yeah, and I've been on Standing for Truth a bunch of times now and pray. Oh, that's right. That's the other thing is supposed to be going back on Praise's channel again to have another debate discussion with Gavin about morality. So, which is my favorite topic to discuss.
Yeah, fun. With Gavin though, he's going to start yelling at you.
No, actually, it's really interesting. See, this is the way. See, Ding Dong brings out the worst in me, but with guys like I can talk to Praise. I can talk to Gavin, and we've actually gotten on quite well. Donnie, who, like, from his biblical worldview perspective, is like Pluto, man. It's out there. But he and I can talk about stuff. We've sent lengthy emails back and forth. He's sending me like Netflix recommendations and stuff like that. But it's only Ding Dong, who just brings out the worst in me. I think he probably brings out the worst in humanity.
But I think that I do that to Gavin, in all fairness.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, because I mean, I've had 2 debates with him. It's been a long time since the last one, even longer since the first one. But yeah, anytime I would have a debate, I will state something that all I have to do is look up something from like John J. Collins or Bart Ehrman that I know is not cool with fundamentalists. Repeat that verbatim, and I think the content of what I'm saying, and then combined with my tone of voice or maybe the look on my face, because oftentimes those videos I was on screen, I was using my webcam.
Right.
It just drives him nuts. He would just freak. He kind of loses it a little bit. So I think it's kind of funny. But hopefully when you do debate him, everybody's talking about his lackadaisical pants wearing philosophy. Hopefully he's fully clothed when you're on there.
He does like to have his shirt unbuttoned.
Yes.
He is a fan of and I'm half gorilla, so I always try to keep myself covered. But we're all apes, right? But
yeah,
I'm more on the ape side than average. Except up here, I can't seem to work anything right there. But yeah, in the side chat, I'll put a couple of different links. If anybody's listening to this, just the ca@rogers.com. Send me an email. Love to host you. And actually, Jefferson, you and I spoke about you coming on. We got to set that up too. Dean and I have been lazy the last few weeks. He had a couple of life change situations, which is why we haven't been as regular on the podcast. But he's coming over, I think, on Monday. do, I think it's episode 157. So we've been doing this now for almost 4 years. So.
Oh, wow. Actually, I could throw that in there. Did you say the CA, no, all one word, THECA at Rogers?
Yeah.
Is that DG or just G?
Just G.
Rogers.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I'll send you the other one because the other one is the CA podcast .wordpress. So it's always funny. People say, "Why do you have a podcast on WordPress?" And I cling feverishly to technological impotence. WordPress was really easy, and that's why they got my money. Their interface is super simple, and so I use that. But yeah, we got really lucky, actually. If you got a minute or so, if you go into our back catalog, there you'll see conversations with Lawrence Krauss. Kent Hovind has been on there. Aaron Raw has been on a couple of times. Steve McRae, Dr. Josh Bowen has been on 5 or 6 times talking about various things.
Oh, you've had him on that often?
Oh yeah. We were joking that I had to get him like a Saturday Night Live 5-timers jacket. Yeah, because he's been on that. Him and his lovely wife Megan is just so amazing.
Yeah, they're very cool.
They are beautiful people. Yeah, so we've been doing this a while, and we got very lucky. Armin Navabi, I don't know if you know who he is. He's the head of Atheist Republic, which is I think it's the largest atheist group on Facebook. Anyway, 5 years ago now at Imagine No Religion 7 in Toronto, I met him there, and he agreed to come on the podcast. And he came on the podcast very early on, like episode 10 or something like that. And then he blasted us out to his worldwide audience. And we are now fortunate enough that we enjoy regular downloads from more than 100 countries. So that's all credit due to him for that.
Yeah.
For sure. Because I'm not that talented.
Oh, you guys are obviously doing something right because you've got it. I mean, you're plugging along. So
yeah, plugging along. Yeah, it's like I said, the last couple of months have been brutal. Dean had some life changes going on. He's fine, but yeah, it was kind of a rough time. So we got sidestepped a bit. But there's a bunch of I've mirrored a bunch of the debates that I've done or discussions on like standing for truth and other places there. So yeah, that's another way to have a look at my ugly mug, because on the podcast it's just audio because I have a face for radio. So
I like to think the same thing. That's why I usually stay off camera. That and I'm not great with technology, but I do like technology when I can get it to work, and then feel proud of myself. I probably would be on a live camera right now if I could get the damn thing to work, but this laptop has not been treated well. So,
well, see, that's part of one of the reasons I cling to Mac is because it all just works.
Yeah,
for the most part, but it's also ridiculous because it's a basic MacBook is $2,500, right? It's ridiculous.
Yeah. I think you can get the Airs now, but that's like you're still looking at $1,200, and
yeah,
you're in a category of laptop where for people who want to do like something a little bit more powerful or with gaming, you can spend $1,200 and you get that flexibility with a Windows laptop or a Windows desktop. So although everything right now is ridiculously expensive, so
well, there's no people can't find processor chips anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, it's insane that it's over 2 years and you still can't you can't easily get like any of the newer video game consoles either. It's still they're still being scalped. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So I promise I'll let you go after this. So funny story. I have both an Xbox Series X and a PS5. And
how?
Yeah.
Dude.
So what happened is I was in Banff, which is just outside Calgary, Alberta. Yeah. And that was the day the pre-orders happened for the Series X. And somehow through, at Moraine Lake, I was able to get a signal and pre-order a Series X. And then I got on a waiting list for a PS5. I don't know, a year and a half ago, and every time I do a talk or something with Steven from Cider and Port, he and I did 3 tag team debates on Modern Day Debate with Smokey Saint and John Maddox.
Yeah.
And so I love Steven; he's a great guy. And he always has his PS5 behind him, right?
Yeah, like
No.
yeah, I know. I've noticed it. It bothers me. No, Steven's great.
So I got on a waiting list for a PS5, and October the something, just before Christmas, they called me and they said, "Hey, we've got one. Do you want one?" So I was humming and hawing. I'm like, "Oh, do I want one?" I'm like, "Well, if I don't buy it now, I'm gonna be mad at myself." So I go over, and of course they have you hooked, right? Because they know that they can sell them like that, right? So the console, $629, and then but they make you buy a bundle. So they make you buy a second controller, it's $90, and they make you buy a game that's $90. So after taxes, which we pay the up the wazoo in Canada, $940 later, 2 months before Christmas, I leave with a PS5. My wife punches me in the balls when I get home for spending $1,000 2 months before Christmas on myself. And she's like, you're not supposed to, spend money on yourself anyway. And so, yeah, now I have these 2 consoles, and it would make you even more mad to know that I only play one game on each of them.
All right, I'm gonna give me one. Sorry.
On Xbox, all I play is Forza Motorsport, and on the PS5, all I play is Gran Turismo.
You don't deserve what you have. No, I'm sorry. That's ugly. That's just me being ugly. Yeah, it's just, yeah, that's just flat out envy coming out of me. No, actually the one thing that I really wanted to play on it was, I think it was the last Assassin's Creed game, Valhalla, which I could play that on a PC, but I don't think my laptop has some gaming juice to it. But it's just updated to Windows 11. It's got some driver issues and stuff. It's just long enough in the tooth where I'll probably never own a laptop again. But everything right now has been so expensive, and it has been for so long that I've just, I look for things, and it's like, I'm not going to bother with it. So.
Yeah, fun fact: a friend of mine worked at Ubisoft. He was an art director for the Assassin's Creed series.
Oh, sweet! Yeah.
He's now living in China, actually working on another game development program.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I'm horribly addicted to those games. The last couple I've been hit or miss, but yeah, I've played most of them, not all of them. And he's just an art. He just makes it look pretty.
Yeah,
well, they definitely do look pretty. The last one that I was really addicted to was the one in ancient Greece. That one is just gorgeous, and it's cool because you're running around. By the time it branches out, you're running around all over Greece and the Greek islands and stuff. It's just it's beautiful.
Yeah, he hates it. I've never played any of them.
You ought to play at least one just so that you you can appreciate some of the work that he's done.
Yeah, he's like, if you play, I was like, no, I was playing Forza. Sorry.
No time for you, man. I got racing to do.
I got racing to do. Well, I'm a racing junkie. So that's my jam.
Yeah. Hey, to each his own. I never got into the racing games because I'm really bad at them. So they just give me stress because I'm so bad at them. So I play games that are mostly focused on like murder puzzles. And Assassin's Creed is perfect because it's like creep around, kill a bunch of people. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Yep.
So we sorry, just cut me off if you don't want to talk anymore. When we were getting ready to go on our honeymoon, my wife said to me, she's like, what do you want to do? I said, I want to go to Germany. I want to rent a 911 and drive on the Nürburgring. And so that's what we did for our honeymoon.
Nice.
And we did that, and then we spent 2 weeks in Italy. But anyway.
See, that's more my style. Yeah.
Which was spectacular. I got 3 days on the Nürburgring. She got 11 days in Italy. But as we're getting ready, I'm showing her the track, and if anyone is familiar with the Nürburgring, it's one lap is almost 13 miles long. and it's the most technical racetrack on the planet. And all of the rental car companies specifically omit your insurance if you take them on the Nürburgring. So that was fun. I didn't wreck the car. So we flew into Frankfurt Airport and picked up a 911 from Avis, right? You know, here they rent, you know, minivans, and, you know, in Germany, they rent, you know,
You could.
Bentleys, 911s, and Ferraris. And so drove the 911 up there, and she's like, "How do you know this track?" And I'm like, "I learned it playing video games." And so my wife, was also an atheist, did the whole, you know,
Yeah.
you know, as we're driving around the circuit in a, you know, $100,000 Porsche.
Because you need some insurance. Yeah. I like
And
this.
it worked. And it obviously worked because we didn't wreck the car. But yeah, that's my thing is racing. That's my thing.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's very cool. Yeah, I mean, the fact that you know, out of that Assassin's Creed series, I mean, when they came out, and I knew they were coming out with it, it was like, well, they're doing a Viking one, and I'm like, oh no, because that's something. I mean, I like history in general, but I was like, you get to play a Viking, and then I heard like, yeah, you actually raid, you know, Angles and Saxon villages and turn them over into your, you know, turn them into, you know, it's like a whole, you know, territory kind of gathering thing. And I'm like, oh damn it, if that's a game I'm going to get lost in. It's probably a good thing I haven't been able to buy it, because yeah, that.
Well, you got to get up. So with COVID, right? We've had to cancel many trips. We'd like to go to Mexico's our favorite place to go. 2 years ago, we had to cancel our trip to Mexico. We went up to Banff. Last year, we had to cancel again, and we went to Newfoundland, and we went to Grossmorn National Park.
Okay.
And we took a boat tour in the fjords where the Viking landing was in North America.
Sweet. Yep.
So that would be right up your alley.
Yeah, I actually really want to. I don't know too much about. I don't really know enough about Canada, but I actually saw. I was doing this thing before COVID hit, where I was going to a lot of musical theater with a friend of mine, who accused me of being uncultured because she knew I was a huge movie nerd, and then she would make references to musical theater, and I'm like, "What the hell is that?" And she's like, "You've never seen Les Mis?" And I'm like, "I once heard of Les Mis." I'm like, "I've caught references to it, sure." And she's like, "You got to watch more of these." So I started doing this thing where we'd go to these, and there was one called "Come From Away," and it's about the 9/11. I think they're making a movie out of it. And I'm still not a huge fan of musical theater. Generally, when people start singing in something, unless it's offensive or really funny, I'm going to tune out. But that one I actually really liked, probably because it was also short. It was like 90 minutes. But I really, you know, I thought it was funny, and it was pretty endearing, and it gave me a real interest. When we left, I was like, I kind of want to go see Newfoundland. And my friend was like, God, why? It just sounded cold and filled with cheese. And I'm like, they had me at the cheese part. Like, I mean, yeah, I'll just go there and eat cheese and drink whiskey, and sounds awesome. But.
It is. Newfoundland is spectacularly gorgeous. It's really big too. When we drove, we flew into St. John's, which is at one end, and drove up to Grossmorn, which is at the other end. Took 7.5 hours by car. But during COVID, there were no flights. We couldn't get a plane to go there.
Yeah.
But we got to see virtually the whole of Newfoundland, not Labrador, because Newfoundland and Labrador are again just gigantic.
Yeah.
So we got to see pretty much all of Newfoundland, which is just beautiful. Yeah, you have to go there. And I mean, everything about Canada. I mean, we're not perfect, right? But, you know, hot and cold running healthcare is a good thing.
Yes.
And, you know, which is, of course, not free, right? We pay a buttload of taxes.
Yes, you do.
But I'll never go bankrupt if I get sick.
Yeah, that's always an advantage. Yeah, that's a big one. And yeah, and to think, didn't your national healthcare scheme start in Alberta or Saskatchewan? Which?
It was a guy named Tommy Douglas.
Which province kicked it off? Because I know it wasn't.
It wasn't. I believe it was Saskatchewan.
That's what I'm thinking.
Oh, yeah. I'm a horrible Canadian to not know that. Yeah, but it was started by basically one guy, Tommy Douglas.
Yeah,
was the guy that basically, you know, put it together.
I remember reading about it years ago and thinking, like, man, that'd be like, you know, if Wyoming or Montana kicked off the United States' first like national healthcare system, you know, and then it just like spread and went nationwide. But it's like, yeah, Saskatchewan of all places. All right.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's just I think it's a Canadian thing. Well, not just a Canadian thing. I mean, most civilized nations have universal healthcare. Sorry to be a direct poke in the eye to America, but it's funny because I hear a lot of people talk about how amazing America is, greatest place on earth, and I'm like, no, I'm sorry, but you don't even make the top 10, at least in my mind, because again,
easy now there.
you don't recognize healthcare as a basic human right.
It can't be a basic human right, because if it's a basic human commodity, and if you can't afford it, that's God choosing you to lose.
Sure.
Because capitalism and Christianity are like this. They, just fingers crossed. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, well, look at if you ever come to Canada and you're close to Toronto, you've got a place to stay.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, no, I will probably hit you up on that. I will warn you in advance. I will take you up on that offer, and I make a terrible house guest. So
that's okay. Yeah, I don't clean the house. We have a maid that comes in, so make all the mess you want.
Oh, okay. Well, she will find out that I am a terrible house guest. No, I mean, as soon as things calm down, and hopefully if we do get another strain after this Omicron rush, hopefully we get a break in between them, because I would like it, when the weather gets warmer, I would like to skip over, because I'm in Michigan, so it's not far for me to get over into Canada, and I would like to at least get in, across the river from Detroit into Windsor and take a look around.
Okay, I was going to say, are you closer to Port Huron or Detroit?
For where I'm at, I'm in kind of I'm in that lower part of the state, so it's kind of where I would be going from. I mean, I can go into Sarnia from Port Huron, or I could skip into Windsor, just depending on what conditions are. And it depends on what I want to hit, obviously. If I'm just going into Windsor to do shopping or something like that, I just go through the Detroit. But I think if I was going to cut over and head up to Toronto, I'd probably go through Port Huron.
Yeah, Port Huron and Sarnia, I think it's the 402.
Something like, yeah.
Yeah, connects right up with the 401. Yeah.
I drove through that way years ago. I was going to see a friend that lived in Buffalo, so and it was my first time going.
That'd be easy to cut right across. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I remember, like, the roads. I don't know if they've improved any, but the highway leading up to Port Huron, it looked like they'd been tested missiles on it. It was just in terrible shape, and this was probably 2005 or something around there, 2004, 2005. And it's just horrible. And I get to the crossing and everything, and everybody's like, really, it was not great looking. And I'm like, okay, that's Sarnia on the other side. And I hadn't heard great things about that. And I cross over, and then all of a sudden, it's just, the roads are immaculate. Like, it's just this pristine macadam. Yeah. It's this black, the paint looks good. And I'm like, yeah. And I look at my phone, and it switched over. I think whatever service I had, it switched over to Rogers. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm definitely in a foreign land now, and I'm just driving through there, and I was like, this is surreal. Like, these roads work.
Yeah, it's an interesting. We're not perfect by any stretch, but I think we do a lot of things really well. And yeah, Toronto's a spectacular city. It has its less than beautiful parts, but I mean, it's the 4th largest city in North America. The Greater Toronto area is about 5.5 million people or so.
Yeah.
So and I'm just east of Toronto. Like, I'm technically in a suburb of Toronto.
Okay. Yeah. My trick is, like, I mean, because for me, it's like, getting to see some international food and stuff, like, getting to eat stuff. That would be more my kind of thing, food tourism kind of thing. And I haven't been to Toronto since I was 12.
Yeah. And that's a giveaway, right? Because nobody says Toronto. It's Toronto.
Toronto.
Yeah. That's the biggest giveaway that you're not local, is when you say, oh, Toronto's a very nice city, because no one says that. It's Toronto.
Toronto.
Yeah.
I'll try to remember that. Try to blend it.
Yeah, you'll come for the beaver tails and the poutine.
Yeah, I can only eat so much poutine. Like, I mean, it's not that I don't want. Like, as soon as I get that, like, all my Scottish genes kick up, and that's all I want to eat. Like, I could triple my body mass on a diet of poutine, and I think I would gladly do it. But yeah, I'd have to be careful around that shit. God, yeah. Now I'm hungry. Now I want poutine. Okay, well, let's wrap this up on that note.
I'm sure Uber Eats will deliver to you somewhere. Yeah.
I wish we do occasionally. We have some places around here, diners and stuff, where they'll do like it's gravy fries or something like that, and it's like it's kind of half-assed. Or if they do poutine, they kind of zhuzh it up. They'll do it in kind of like a kind of a wannabe gourmet way, which is just sort of odd. But
yeah. So last funny story. Matt Dillahunty was in Toronto with his now ex-wife Beth Presswood a bunch of years ago, and I met up with them, and I told Beth, I said you got to go have poutine, and so she went and had it, and she said, because all about poutine, right, is the dark beef gravy, right, and it has to be hot to melt the cheese curds.
Yeah.
And she said, oh, this would be really good with white gravy. And there were a couple people standing around that looked at her, and I thought there was going to be an inquisition. Like, and I was like, man, it's like if we were somewhere in the States, like you get shot for that. And of course, that's not a risk in Canada. But there were a couple of people looked at her like, burner. And not because she was a heathen, but because she suggested white gravy on poutine.
I can see some. I mean, I think she's from Texas, right? So I can see them. Yeah, that's the idea of throwing cheese curds in a white gravy just seems that's just excessive. Yeah. Not that it's not excessive in the brown gravy, but
no, everything about I think a lot of foods like that are. I don't know who comes up with that. Like, who came up with that idea? I have no idea.
Trevor asks, I'm Australian and may not have heard correctly. What is beaver tail and poutine? Poutine is basically just gravy fries. It's French fries with gravy on, cheese curds. You guys don't do a cheese sauce, do you?
Okay. So it has to be fresh cut fries. Okay. And they come out really hot. Then you put the cheese curds on, and then you put piping hot dark brown beef gravy on top of that, and it all melts together. My wife puts ketchup on it, which makes me almost want to take my wedding ring off. But she's weird like that. She also likes ketchup with her steak. But we won't get into that.
So does Trump. Tell her that. Maybe she'll stop.
Oh, why did you have to say that? I'll never look at my wife the same way again. No. So a beaver tail is a Canadian dessert. Basically, if you can imagine, like, you know what funnel cakes are?
Yes.
Okay. Kind of like that. Except it's like, or if you can imagine like basically like a beaver tail shaped pastry with all kinds of stuff put on top of it, like chocolate, nuts, ice cream, Nutella, and like things drizzled on it. There's a reason why I'm fat. And then you just eat it. Yeah.
Benghazi, poutine, blood sausage, and potatoes. Anything else for your last meal, Jeff? For my last meal, it would probably be, well, I don't know. Actually, the closest thing I do want to try in Canada would be donair. But
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, here, I don't know how this works. Is donair is it basically like the Euro meat? Is it gray?
Yeah.
Or yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's Euro. I'm not a huge fan of that. For me, I like shawarma. Which usually here, somebody was actually complaining about it from the UK. They were like, yeah, I was in the United States and I went to a kebab place and they called it shawarma, and it was actually like good chicken. It was like a stack of chicken breasts or chicken thighs on the spit, and they had roasted it all day. And most of the shawarma that I've had has been in and around this part of the country, and it's always been like that. Like, I mean, you can get the Euro stuff, but it's not the you got to go to particular places where they've got that particular cone of meat hanging up. You got to look for the gray slimy one.
Yeah. There are, just like every big city, there are little microcosms all within Toronto. Little Italy, little Portugal, Chinatown, all these, like there are little microcosms set up, and you have to, Kensington Market is another big one. And you go in there and you watch, you have to watch, like you look at where the locals, are going, right? So what you do is you stand there and you people watch for a little bit, and the people who come in and very purposely go to this place or that place, and that's the place you go, and it's always amazing. And so you have to be a little creepy at first, right? You stand there and watch people. But you know, the method to your madness, right? But yeah, one of the cool things about a place like Toronto is I can, within about, well, traffic these days not so much, within about a 45-minute drive, I can have Ethiopian food, some of the best Greek you can imagine.
Oh yeah.
Like just like all within a very, very small area. So there's lots of places, and one of the new things in Toronto, and probably not just Toronto, are these fusion restaurants. So there's one in downtown Toronto called Choto Mate, which is a Peruvian Japanese fusion restaurant.
Interesting.
Spectacular. Really, really interesting twists on sushi and sashimi. Some really good stuff. So,
well, yeah, because Peruvians do ceviche, don't they?
Yep.
So yeah, I can see why they would try to blend those two together. I've heard. Yep, a buddy of mine lives over in the DC area, and Peruvian food. I haven't seen him in years, but Peruvian food kind of took off last decade. I heard, in kind of the DC area. Like, I don't know if was it Peruvian or no? Sorry, my bad. I think it was Portuguese, which I thought was kind of different. Portuguese food kind of took off there.
Yeah, there's a bunch of that. There's a bunch of that in Toronto too. You know, the whole broiled flat chickens, the piri.
Yep.
Yeah, stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of good places to get that in Toronto as well.
Yeah, I'd have to budget if I make the trip. I'm gonna have to budget quite a bit for the food I'm gonna eat, because that's gonna be the reason why I go.
Yeah,
well,
and yeah, you can. There are. Yeah, Toronto's not a cheap city either. Yeah, it's not a cheap city.
Yeah, it's just JC Chotomate just means wait. Yeah, it does, but mate in Peru, isn't it tea?
I have no idea.
It's probably MATE with a hyphen over the E. Yeah, like yerba mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, a white guy at me looking at it is like, Choto Mate, cool. All right. Like, I don't know any different. I mean, I barely speak English, let alone anything else.
Yeah, well, I used to speak okay Japanese, but well, I not great, I guess, but now it's terrible. So, but I can still kind of remember stuff. Anyway, folks, we're gonna wrap it up there. Micheal, thanks again for coming on. And
well, no, thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was fun. Anyway, everybody else, have a great night. Have a good weekend. Again, I'm going to be on again tomorrow morning, so just check notifications if you happen to be eating brunch, eating breakfast, whatever. I'll be back. So take care, everybody, and good night.
Cheers.